Welcome into another episode of Discard for Magic. I'm one of your hosts, Aaron.
I'm the other host, James, or Jexic, and today we're excited to have on two people. We got Exile.
Hello.
And TastyTeddyBear.
Hello there.
They're both relatively new players to the game. They've, maybe been here 6 months or less, each of them, but they're already both very good. As of the recording, Exile is, at the very least, a finalist in the Summoner Wars Plaid Hat tournament, the big one. And TastyTeddyBear was the runner-up in the Turtle Terror. And they've both participated in other leagues and things like that. And we just like to get their opinion on what it's like to come into the game as a new player. First, we'd like to try to get to know some of them. So what was your gaming background before you played Summoner Wars?
My gaming background, I think I've played a lot of the Soul series, a lot of RPGs. I also love competitive games, playing with friends, trying to push each other, like Hearthstone, League of Legends, some card games like One Piece and Legends of Runeterra.
As for me, funny that you mentioned Souls games because that was a huge part of my childhood was playing through all of those. More related to like Summoner Wars and card games though. I grew up playing Magic the Gathering, play quite a lot of D&D, and just in general play a lot of board games.
How did the two of you first find Summoner Wars? If you're playing these other games, how did Summoner Wars crack in?
I was actually looking for another board game to play with friends. So board game wise, I've played a lot of chess back in the game. So it's kind of looking like a similar thing. And then I found this YouTube channel with Board Games Hangover, it's called.
Oh, yeah.
I tried out the app, and it felt kind of laggy to me because I came from a Hearthstone background, right, with this really smooth controls. So I actually stopped playing it after one game. But then I think a year later, I still decided to buy the physical game. And I fell in love with it.
You played some live games first?
Actually, quite a lot. I've played with my little brother, with a couple of friends.
That's cool. I think there are some other Dutch players. Maybe you guys can try to coordinate something.
Yeah, that would be lovely. Like I would love a physical tournament. Yeah, definitely.
And also, I know there's German players too. So I mean, that's like the next state over for us.
True. Yeah. It's not that far away from me, actually. So
yeah, you could just get on a train, right?
Yeah, right.
What about you, Exile? How did you find Summoner Wars?
Yeah, let's see. Our neighbors had recommended to us a used board game sale. Shout out to Rain City Game in Vancouver. They had a website that lists all the used board games that are ongoing through for this sale, and I was combing through all of them trying to find the ones I was most interested in. And I saw Summoner Wars. I think it was the master set. So looked into it a little bit, thought it was right up my alley. Me and my partner play a lot of board games with each other, as well as have some neighbors that we play with quite often. So I picked up a copy, and that's where the hyperfixation hit. Is I started playing it, and I went, "Ooh, this is like perfect for me. This is exactly what I wanted." So I just had the physical set for a little bit, and I got to the point where I started playing games against myself until I was like, all right, there has to be a community around this. There has to be something. So I found Summoner Wars Online, the web client, and then from that found the Discord, and we were off to the races.
You started with the physical, and so we're lucky that someone else decided to sell the game and get rid of it.
Yeah, had somebody not put it up for sale, then I wouldn't be here right now.
That'd be funny if we could find out who that was, and then like you're the reason the exiles came here.
Yeah. I had a funny experience the other day where I was talking to my partner about like something Summoner Wars related, and like somebody just like walking next to us was like, "What game is this?" And I was like, "Oh, hi!" And I started telling them about it, and they're like, "Oh yeah, that sounds cool. I might give it a shot." So I'm like, now I'm like got to keep an eye out, like if this person somehow makes it to the Discord server. I'm like,
yeah, someone's like, "Oh yeah, I'm from Vancouver." It's like,
yeah. This one random person was just talking outside about this thing, and I decided to check it out.
I had a time like that once. I was up in Wisconsin Dells, and I was like packing Summoner Wars back into my car, and this guy was like, "Is that Summoner Wars?" I was like, "Yeah." Did not expect that conversation to start that way.
Oh, that's cool. Small world.
So this game's been out, even the second edition has been out for almost, 5 or 6 years now. So what's it like to come to a game that's got this much development and time behind it with all these players that have their own ways of thinking about it? What's it like to just come in and be like, okay, well, what can I do here?
Yeah, definitely. It's actually quite fun for me. There are so many useful informative content already out there, and these lovely events that we can play. Also, it's kind of the big community it has now, or like this small, very long-lasting community, shows to me that the company can be trusted. I've played a lot of Legends of Runeterra, and then they suddenly pulled the plug, so that felt very awful. Seeing all these different players playing for so long, having already these metas established, but then new content comes out and everyone starts trying to figure out the factions again, is really fun. The only thing I could say, I wish I was there sooner with the established players.
For myself, it was definitely a little bit intimidating at first glance, but like this kind of like space of a niche community, dedicated players on a game that has like so much depth on it is like exactly where the space that I really, really enjoy. A similar thing, I played on a Discord server for Dungeons and Dragons PvP for quite a while, which is not the normal way you play Dungeons and Dragons.
No.
A tight, small community of like people who are like, hey, we really just want to beat each other up using these mechanics because it's not a thing that you do in the normal.
No, you're normally just fighting big hit point sponges of monsters type.
Yeah, exactly. And it's similar of like there's a lot of like conventional ideas, right, of like optimization that it already exist that people know about, and certain mechanics that are strong and certain things that aren't. The space is so huge, the ability to customize there, less so in Summoner Wars outside of deck building, but like I guess your play style, how many decision points you have is so big that there's still so much room to explore. And that's kind of how I feel a little bit about the current state of Summoner Wars, is that there's a lot of conventional wisdom, there's a lot of good strategy, but there's still so much left to explore, I feel like, which we can talk about, it might be coming up later. Shimmer Sea Fae has been like a really interesting thing for me to also dive into, because the conventional wisdom there is that they were just terrible, and I fully believed it as well, because just looking at their cards, I was like, these guys are just terrible. But I think that there is untapped space there that like the metagame hasn't discovered yet. And I feel like that's the same for a lot of things across it all. To summarize and kind of answer the question more coherently, there is a lot of pre-established strong strategy, but there's still so much of the iceberg left to uncover. And that means that there's room left for innovation.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's kind of crazy coming into a game like this. We have 30 factions now. Tasty was talking about it a little bit. Like, there's more guides and more helpful documents and podcasts and videos and stuff like that. But there's also so much more like matchups and so much more established thoughts or players and different aspects that are make it a little more difficult, and different aspects that make it a little easier. So
Jaxic once asked me if I wasn't overwhelmed by all the different factions and if I did like that. But that's actually one of the most fun things of this game. Like, there's so many different factions, so many different fantasy races that I didn't know about, like really original ones. And that's actually what kept me coming back to the game. When I'm fed up with one, I'll just go to the other one.
You were first kind of came in, you're maybe on the periphery or on the fence about what you wanted to do. What got you over that initial hump of just checking the game out to diving deep into it? Was it just overnight? You're like, oh man, I got to jump in, or like what kind of pushed you over the edge?
Excile was also saying this hyper focus on games is something I experienced as well. But at first I was just playing with friends. But then when I downloaded the app just to try out some factions to see which one to buy, I found out about the Discord, I think just randomly, accidentally. When I found out there was these events going on, and also watching a YouTube video of Donkey versus Jaxic, but then looking at my screen and seeing that I was playing a Jaxic, I was like, wait, this is the same person? It felt really cool. Yeah. It felt so cool. And this was like this small niche community that you can get like kind of a name for yourself, getting better. And then also I remembered spamming you with, oh man, I got to gold, like thinking this was the best accomplishment anyone has ever done. And you're like, oh yeah, good job, keep going. But then I fell in love with the ladder, just keep climbing, and with the events, I went all in.
I guess for me it was like quite overnight. However, I would say for like the longevity of it, the Discord community and the members thereof was definitely a big thing. I also had a very similar moment. I think it was with Jexic as well, where I was like, holy shit, this is one of the podcast people. Let's go. And I would say I was playing like Mountain Vargrith versus Wayfarers or something. And I think I ended up winning the game. And that dopamine high of being like, this is like a person who is really good at the game that I've managed to win off of like this early was like just chasing that.
So you're saying is when I see a new player, I need to throw the game. No,
Or just stomp them too, because then it's like, ooh, now I got to beat this guy. Now I got to get better. Just play more games is, I guess, all you have to do.
You can't tell Jexic to play more games. I mean, that's insane.
I've been playing a little more lately, but I have a really weird deck build I've been trying out. I say really weird. It's still a Tundra Orc deck, but it's a mixture of two ideas.
Ooh.
Are you aware how many games Jexic's played?
I think I saw some stats on Joe's stream.
In a couple thousands, right?
I'm close to probably 5 or 6, I think, now,
Yeah,
but I don't know.
6,000 or something. But
Is that like career total?
Yeah, there's people that are probably getting close to me. People like Dead Sands who came in later just plays an awful lot, or like Lord Funkadelic. I'd be surprised if he doesn't end up with the title at some point because he just constantly has 12 games going. So
and JJ was close last time we checked. But
Talking about like people like Dead Sense and how I got to getting more competitive, seeing these same people coming back up in my ranked games, and they kept beating me at first, and then you try to improve, and then eventually winning from them. That's maybe one of the most important things, like setting goals. Like next time I'm going to see Dead Sense, I'm going to defeat him, or I'm going to get to Diamond, or I'm going to get to that much Elo. Setting some goals for yourself is really important to improve.
Yeah, both improve and also just have that like hook, right? Of like,
that dopamine rush. Yeah,
it's like, ooh, this is the thing I want to achieve is very much a thing. Like the first season I joined, I was picked goats. I picked Mountain Vargrith, and I was like, I just want to play these guys and just get the fundamentals of the game down. And then I realized that I could hit number 1 on that faction, and I was like, oh, we're doing this. We're hitting number 1 on the faction. And then I realized I could hit top 25. So then that was the next thing. And then at the end of it, I was like, it's really close, but I think I have just enough time if I like win these games to hit top 10. And I managed to hit top 10 the first season, which was so cool. And then it was just like, all right, season's reset. We go again, both for the hook and the improvement.
I guess you guys kind of already answered the next question with what do you find is most helpful for getting better? You said setting goals for yourself to improve and to do better.
I think that's the number one for your motivation, right? If you have no motivation, you have nothing to begin with. But there are a couple of things that are more practical tips to get better at the game.
do you guys feel other ways to improve, like watching like high-level games or reading the articles on SW Zone, or like watching the YouTube videos, Jexic or Chera's stream, or like the podcast? Do you feel like those are like more beneficial than the other? What are your thoughts on those?
Not to give you too much credit, but the Discard for Magic podcast is incredible. I gained so much knowledge about the game, just the basic strategies from the factions. Every new player I encounter, I tell them to watch 3 different videos. It's the faction you play, it's the Improve Your Play by Vexa and Profit, or the podcast. And if you face an opponent, just listen to the opponent's podcast. You'll get a lot of knowledge by listening to the podcast.
For me as well, podcast was huge, articles were big. I kind of think to generalize it a bit, I think it depends on like whatever way you learn best. There are going to be some people who I think listening to the podcast is probably not going to yield as many returns as it would for others, just based on they kind of might need to, get their hands dirty a bit more and like learn in game as opposed to ingesting knowledge outside of that. For me, like I was very much a sponge super early of just all the content I could find. I went and grabbed that. But I think, whatever way you learn the best, there's probably going to be a tool out there that is going to help you with that, whether it's podcasts or, tournament breakdowns or articles or just playing ladder a bunch. Also, like the mentorship program and the Discord, just the Discord community as a whole. Remember when I first joined, there's all the factions, and honestly, I love the faction design of pretty much every single one. So, like, I could be happy playing any of them. One of the very first questions I asked was like, hey, this is what I enjoy in a faction. What would be good for me to play? And I got a bunch of answers back, but ultimately one that rung pretty true was Mountain Vargrith. People recommended that. I decided that this looked about like what I wanted to do, and then I started just jamming them. Whatever method you learn best with, there's going to be something that's going to let you do that.
It's quite funny you say that because I have my own kind of bold method of just messaging the best players of the factions that I want to play. I was like, wait, I want to play some Obsidian Dwarves. Then I messaged, I'd say Magnifico to see if he can explain me a bit. Or with the Savannah Elves, I messaged Chibata. It's a lovely community, and most of the people love to talk about their factions. So chatting up with the most experienced people and not needing to reinvent the wheel is also really nice.
You both mentioned kind of focusing on one faction at a time. Do you think that's a helpful way to go about it at this stage of the game, to kind of focus on one or a few factions? Or do you think it's good to generalize? I mean, it's just a general question, I guess.
Getting the basics down of the game, you kind of need one faction to leave all the other factors out. Eventually, especially in the tournament, I learned that playing all the different factions helps you a lot with mastering how to counter the other factions, because there are some explosive factions in here that if you do not know their tricks well enough, then you'll just get blown up. Playing them all a couple of times really helps a lot.
Yeah, I think both is a good strategy. 100% agree with playing one or a small set of factions to start, just because that way there's consistency and you can learn from your mistakes a bit easier because you're limiting the variables, right? If you play a different faction every single game, you might lose a game and think that it was because of a mistake, but actually that might have just been a bad matchup, or that kind of thing. But at the same time, having that like wide array of knowledge does help you, I think, maybe in that next step. Once you have a faction down pat and you're like, all right, I know what this faction can do, then playing your opposition so you can understand the other side of the matchup. That's what I would say is like the kind of like the 2-step process that I would go for.
I think that's good advice, and that's part of why I really like the SW Zone League, just because you're forced to play both sides of the matchup, and so you get to see it from both sides. And often I find that I learn more about matchups that way than just sometimes when you just play the same faction over and over again, you get set in different techniques or different ways, and you don't really adjust to different matchups, and you can only learn some of those sometimes by playing the other side of the matchup.
And also being forced into playing a certain matchup. I remember I played the Storm Goblins for the very first time in the tournament, and I just put on the podcast, listened to how to play them, and I actually defeated my opponent. And it was quite a good player as well. So, and now I actually love playing them. So trying different factions never hurts, and maybe you'll find your next main faction to play.
Yeah, actually, speaking of the tournament, only reason I played Filth is because I played them in the tournament, and I went, "Oh, this is pretty cool. I quite like this." I, known about them and been like, I'm not sure if that's my vibe." And I know that they're like a very like meta pick, and I generally like to play more like esoteric, underrepresented. Yeah. I love an off meta pick because I know more about it than my opponent does generally, so you can kind of leverage that against them. But I digress. But then I played Filth and was like, ooh, actually, this is pretty fun. So then I started playing Filth. So yeah, like variety is a good way to find what you're into, even if you might not realize it just by looking at it, and also learning the opposition.
I've had a bit of that happen for me too with the Turtlement, where like I'll play actually I haven't played in a while, or Polar Dwarves or the Cloaks or something. Like, you know what, I'm going to start playing these guys this season and try to shoot for gold. I think that's true. What have your favorite events been so far? And it sounds like you both really like the Turtlement, and you both went pretty far. Exile, you were one of the semifinalists, right? TastyTeddyBear went on to the final, and you both beat some good players along the way.
I'm kind of obligated to say that I love the Turtle Terror, right? Yeah. I've played a lot of very skilled players that actually tried to beat me, not on the ladder that maybe, gave me a win or something. But this was actually like them trying, and then me beating them felt really good. But also being forced in different factions helped me know different matchups better, but also find some new factions to play with. But to be honest, my most favorite part of playing game is the 45 minutes. I come from a chess background, so I think I played on my chess club games of like 1.5 hour each person, right? 45 minutes seems kind of short to me, actually. And I just love playing with this time as a resource, trying to play under pressure, playing stuff like the cloak, so pressuring the enemy and kind of taking a long time to think of my turns. Yeah, Live League is the one for me.
Yeah, I like the Live League a lot too. I know Exiles played in it as well.
Yeah.
I think he beat me in that, yeah.
Live League is fun. A way different change of pace, especially for me personally, because I quite like to sit there and draw diagrams for like 30 minutes on like complicated turns and really try to like dive deep on a position. The amount of MS Paint is too much.
Like you got Shimmer Sea Fey, and you're like, okay, here's what are the 12 different cards I could draw with this Oracle? And
Literally, yes. I'll be like, all right, so if I draw a gate here, I can do this play. If I draw, and you kind of need to do that with the Fae, just as a small aside, because otherwise you'll play an Oracle and be like, oh shit, I drew this card. I really should have put that Oracle there. It really needed to be over here, but I digress. But Live League is a way different experience because you can't do that. You have to kind of go off of vibes a little bit, and you can burn a little bit of clock. It's enough time that you, unless it's like a really long game, you can take like 3 minutes, 5 minutes on a position if you really need to, but you can't do that often. Teddy Bear said it's a resource that you have to spend. Quite different.
Yeah, and also the social part. Almost all of my live games I've played with my opponent on Discord. It's just so much fun to play against them and kind of trash talk a bit, but also being really impressed by their amazing turns. It adds a kind of an extra level of enjoyment for me.
Yeah, it's definitely a more social than the async ones. Like I'll occasionally message my opponents during like async games if there was like a really cool turn or something happened. Yeah, the live is a lot more of a kind of a one-on-one where you're talking with your opponent. Have you ever like been in a voice chat with whoever you're playing against Live League on? I think I did it once and it was fun.
Oh, every time. I think I've only done one game without, but I try to get them on the voice chat every time, and it's so much fun. I really recommend it.
yeah, I think I did it with Exile. They were laying out every possible move I could do and deciding what they were gonna do. It's like, well, if he's got Moto Boot, he can do this. And
I mean, it probably helps you a little bit. You're like, all right, I see what you're.
I didn't see that play,
doing.
but I don't. And actually, a lot of times they're just like, he's just naming my hand. There's a bit of an aside, but have any of you guys ever played Tragedy Looper?
I
Yeah.
have not.
No, I don't know what it is.
Okay, Tragedy Looper is this game where basically it's like a one against many game, kind of like the old Descent was and stuff. You're doing this time travel loop essentially where you're trying to solve a mystery as the protagonist. You don't know what the story you're in, and you don't know. It's got this anime theme. Basically, the point I was trying to make, it reminded me of playing that, where you have a team of people trying to figure out what you're doing. You're just sitting there sweating as they just like name off all the stuff that you're trying to do, and you're like, no, don't do that. Because like that game I found more stressful than like tournaments for other games. It was a lot. So I liked being one of the people trying to solve the mystery rather than being the mastermind. Or playing it 2-player. You also play it 2-player and then you're both just really quiet trying to figure it out. But it's a cool game, but very different than Summoner Wars.
I'll definitely check it out. Sounds cool.
Yeah, that actually sounds quite fun.
Yeah, I was the mastermind basically like every time that I played. Not always by choice, but yeah.
But it's stressful, right? It's like...
Yeah, it is stressful. You're just like sitting in silence. But I like that it gives you like some options in like the scenario guide is like, hey, if you're like new to the game, here's like a couple like red herrings you can throw or like things you can do to like sort of throw them off your scent and stuff. It's a fun game. Yeah, I would recommend it. It's been a while since I played it.
Yeah.
That vibe kind of sounds similar to like social deception games where Among Us and all of the other ones where you have like the one person. Less in like, it sounds like you're more architecting things. There's no secret to like who you are, but just the like pressure of being like, yes, I am the odd man out, trying to like essentially create a challenge for everybody else. So yeah, I could see that like a lot of pressure.
And the other tricky thing is that like once someone's played through a scenario, they can't play it again. So like it's tricky to coordinate a group because you have to be set to play it all the same way, or you can't replay something once you've done it. Basically, like as the mastermind, you can't go back and play as a good guy later on that specific scenario. And there's like 10 scenarios in the base game, and then 10 in each expansion but it's fun. I recommend it if it sounds cool to you.
Looping back to the original question, because I had a couple events I wanted to talk about as well, was Faction Masters was a really fun experience. Talking about like drilling down into like a faction, that one, you're playing the same faction for the whole tournament, but also the way I approached it was really drilling down into every matchup because there was a public bracket, so you knew who your opponents were going to be. There wasn't any with the Plaid Hat tournament where it's like, oh, well, whatever matchup you get this week is random. It was very much a thing of like, all right, I am playing Mountain Vargrith against Sand Goblins or Mountain Vargrith against Deepwood Groaks. my like practice regimen for that was essentially playing that matchup 10-ish times just to really dive deep into it. And it was really cool to kind of see the difference of like my generalized play of how I would normally play the faction versus like understanding, oh, in this matchup you can't do this, or actually you normally wouldn't be able to like take this kind of play style, but because of XYZ you could. And kind of going from a general play style to a matchup specific play style was really the thing that I kind of gained off of that. Just really like picking apart matchups specifically. So I would say that was probably my favorite event thus far, just because that was a really cool experience to play against the best players of each faction and take it all the way to get the win, which was really cool. And also the Plaid Hat tournament in the finals at the moment, but crazy stakes on that one, and it's just in the sense of how fast the pool narrows just is really hard. So it's like if you can have a really good record and still not make the next round or the finals. That one was definitely a little bit higher pressure in that sense, but if you end up like losing in round 2 because you did well but you didn't do exceptional, I almost kind of feel like that's a little bit less pressure in a sense, because you're like, I did well, and it requires extra luck on top of the skill to actually make it to that next round.
I was in the same pool as you and Cheras, and I beat Cheras, but by luck. But then I lost kind of a very tight game with Prophet, and I was just like, and if I'd beaten Prophet too, I would have been the one to advance. And I was just, I've never made it to the final pool in a regular base deck tournament, so I was like, I really wanted it this time, but I didn't quite get it. But it was close, and afterwards I was like, well, I lost on place to the 2 people who made the final, so
Yeah.
we had a stacked pool because not only were you 2 in there, but it was also Water D and Prophet who had been in a final against each other before. So I was just like, this is a tough pool.
Yeah, that pool was no joke. That pool was real tough.
When I'm the 5th best player in the pool or whatever. or worse even. I don't know. I didn't win all my games either, so yeah, it was a tough pool.
I mean, you were within a hair of making it into the next round, though, is the thing. And like that's kind of I think the mentality with tournaments as well, is because there's 180 players, or I think that's what it was for this Plaid Hat tournament. There's only so much skill can take you, right? Like you kind of skill will make it more likely for you to advance to the next round, or make it all the way. But at the end of the day, it is a card and dice game, and you're playing so many matches that you could just get bad matchups, you could just get bad dice in one game, and because the cutoff is so steep, if you just have bad dice one game, that might be it. There's nothing you could have done to get to that next round.
Yeah, sometimes the dice can be so brutal. I was very focused on my game against you, Exile, in this last pool, but I lost my game also against Solitaire, and in that one, I wasn't putting as much thought into my turns, but I don't think I made a bad turn. But then I rolled 0 out of 3 on like range dice, and I needed like 1, and then I left myself open to like a demand Thune turn, and I died that next turn.
Yeah, I was following that game, and I was like, how does this? Oh, that's how this happens. Because I saw the result and was like, how did it go from like I thought you were winning to like I was like, oh
Yeah,
variance.
I felt pretty good about it until that turn. And I also like put a wrench rat on the fungal beast, thinking that I was going to kill it and I would be able to do 1 damage to Thune and 1 damage to the other fungal beast. And then I didn't kill it, and then that wrench rat blew up in my face when he stim shroomed down to like do the demand. And
I guess to kind of bring it back to the topic of this episode, for new players, I suppose that is a good thing to mention, is that since this game very strategic, but at the same time, you have both card and dice variants on top of matchup variants in, certain tournaments, I would say not to take your losses too much to heart. There are going to be games that you lose, and it's going to be like, whoa, I just got stomped. And maybe in a different world, you play that game and you win. And that's just kind of the nature of luck. Quite literally, cannot win them all.
And also, taking that from the other way around is the tournament. I just randomly signed up. I was like, maybe I can play a couple games and then I'll be kicked out. But with a little bit of luck, you'll make it to the finals of a tournament. So
yeah,
you never know what happens.
what are like me and Aaron and the other guys wrong about? Has there been any conventional wisdom that didn't stand up to your analysis?
I'll think Excel has already talked about it with the Shimsy Fame, right?
Mhm. I mean, Shimmer Sea Fae. I mean, you beat the Filth in the final pool to move on. So I mean, that's the best faction against the worst faction. I mean, that's a fun matchup to have in the final pool.
I was thinking about that too. I was like, oh, this is really funny. This is the like tournament boogeyman versus the underdog, and the underdog
Mm-hmm.
managed to take it out. Granted, on like I think it was like a 66%, 67% kill shot when I was calculating it at the end.
Yeah.
So like it was very easily you could have been the one going into the finals. Like just on dice that would have been it, because that game was the decider, I believe, between whether or not which one of us went to the finals.
It was for a bit, and then I lost to Solitaire. So it would have been either you or Solitaire, because Solitaire beat me and went 7-1. But yeah, it was a very crucial game.
Yeah, regardless. Because yeah, also if you beat me, then solitaire 100% passes. But tiebreakers and stuff like that in tournaments are weird. I've got a couple things, but I'll just start with the one about Shimmer Sea Fae first. I think one thing that the wealth of content that is available might hurt a little bit more than it helps is kind of calcifying those ideas a little bit. Everybody thinking that Shimmer Sea Fae is just terrible. And don't get me wrong, I still think that they are one of the worst factions in the game, but that doesn't mean that they are just bad. Like, if you average out their win percentage, and let's say, I think it was currently like 40%, let's say it quote unquote should be 45%, that's still not great. Like, that's still probably deserving of an errata to, get it a little bit closer in line with the rest of the factions. But that doesn't mean that all their matchups are bad. I would say that Spectral Conclave, which is a very scary deck to a lot of people, is a very strong Shimmer Sea Fae matchup. And also Filth, which is a very strong deck that is a boogeyman of many a competitive event, is also not like your tools just kind of happen to line up well against them, as I guess the way I would put it. Like a good example is Rebuke, a card that normally is, from an economic perspective, just a straight loss. You play it, you spend the card itself and however much magic the unit is that you're giving back to your opponent, and they get that card back. But in the end, if it's a two cost unit to your 2 magic plus card, you are down to magic in the exchange, is the way I think about it. However, against Filth, it just so happens that if you rebuke a mutant, Demagogue doesn't get boosts. It effectively kills the cultist that you mutated that mutant onto. So it's really like a net zero economic trade. And on top of that, gives you the tempo and like boost denial and just the strong tactic of what the card is, which was used in the final turn of our game to get a kill shot. So I guess bring it all back. The point I would make is that conventional wisdom has truth in it generally, but it's not always 100% true. And I think part of that is just that there still is room for innovation. So being open to those new ideas, being open to new play styles, and kind of breaking the rules to a degree, as I think kind of where the community could get better at this game that's already been out for, God, what is it now? Since first edition, like 20 years, 15 years?
Since first edition, it came out in 09, so 17 years, but we got 5 or 6 years of second edition. So
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Keep in mind that these rules have been set by a small community, like a really, really longevity community, but still, it's like there are a couple of really good players per faction. So it's not like it's a large testing group, right? So there are still a lot of possibilities to shine in a different way with a faction. Look at Dead Sense, for instance. Dead Sense plays these factions really weird and differently, but he has a lot of success with it.
Yeah, I was actually just thinking of Dead Sense when you mentioned that, because like if you look at a faction like the Breakers, Water D came on our podcast, told us a certain way to play them, and he had quite a bit of success with that. And Massimo played them in a very similar way, I'd say, to Water D. But Dead Sands just wants to kill your summoner. Like he'll just go right for it at all time. Like
Yeah, and I've actually spoken with him about it because I started playing Breakers were actually my first main faction. So, and I played him like What a D because I watch all his videos. But how Dead Sense explains it is really logical. It's like your best event only works if you're close, right? So why are you not going close? And these deceivers are really strong for close range. So why are you not going close? It makes sense. You just see all these range die, and you're like, okay, I'll just stay back. But it's such a strong faction up close.
Yeah, I mean, that's just a good example of a pre-existing notion that isn't necessarily wrong. Playing this faction in a certain way doesn't necessarily fully leverage all their tools. It's tangential, but the second thing of like conventional wisdom that I think hasn't held up. Playstyle with factions to a certain degree. Having a set playstyle both as a player and also like as like a collective. So like Breakers is an excellent example of saying, hey, this is how you play Breakers, whether it is either up close or with that like max distance, really leveraging your range dice. I think that both are neither is wrong and neither is right, I guess is the point that I'm trying to make. Because I think that one thing that's easy to forget is that every single matchup is kind of a different game. Like if you're playing Breakers, right, you're always playing that faction, but you have what 30 something 30 odd different factions, and playing Breakers against OD versus playing Breakers against Deepwood Groves is such a different experience, and that can be said about any two matchups with the same faction. So my kind of theory here is that certain playstyles that like players really embody. Dead Sands with like that crazy aggression, Massimo with this like very positional, very going to take your soul by like having a crazy inactivity turn where he just takes an activity, repositions, you're like, oh, I can't hit anything that's worth hitting without exposing something. Those are strong play styles, but they're not right for every situation. So I think that if you're trying to optimize fully, your goal should be to use those as tools rather than set things used every time. Hammer might be right sometimes, screwdriver might be right sometimes, but always using a hammer or a screwdriver isn't going to be right. You should use them for the right situation.
And also, predictability is a strong point as well. Like, if you play against Dead Sense, he's going to come at you, so you can kind of prepare for that. So, always playing the same strategy kind of leaves you open for preparation. Playing in the tournaments, I really loved looking at the past games of players and seeing how they played and actually preparing my strategy in advance. Only playing a certain way kind of leaves you open for prep. Or also what I think about is not how should I play my faction, but how should I play against a certain faction. Feels is way more important than knowing how to play your own faction. You can't put them in a single box, or you will be outplayed, I think. I don't know if that makes sense. Yeah.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I think the big takeaway I'm getting from listening to both of you is that preparation and looking at past games and trying to understand how to, like, having a game plan of some sort, which I guess is what Prophet and Vexer said a while back too, is important. You can't just go in with a blank slate into a game essentially and just kind of do whatever, I guess here's a more fun question we can hop into is what are your favorite factions and why?
Oh, yeah, I kind of prepared this one before, and I have a top 4 of factions. Actually, top 3 and one that I recently found out about. But cloaks, they are just super strong, super versatile, no pun intended. And also, I love these like puzzly turns they have, like when your spider senses go off and you're like, I taste a assassination here, and it's so cool to play them. They're amazing. And then recently I have discovered that Savannah elves are super consistent, super fun, super strong, and they have such fun finishes where your opponent doesn't pay attention. You got your chant of power and just explode them. Talking about explosions, gonna go to the obsidian dwarves. If I don't want to think too much, just be aggressive, blow stuff up. I'll play them. They're so much fun. They have such also, even though they are like the gambling faction, they feel like they have really consistent cards. I look at that deck and I'm like, wait, all these cards are so amazing. Like willpower is such a consistent card to play. You can never go wrong. Weapons on them, it's so cool. And then last, Drakes and Rebellion. Yeah, definitely my tournament MVP. Almost never played them before, but then I got forced into playing them, and it's just super fun. They have some incredible turns to make, and I definitely need to play them a little bit more.
Yeah, I think Drake Sun's a good one to highlight because they're new, and I think sometimes with new players, I think it can be good to hone in on a new faction because you can become one of the best players in the world with that new faction just because no one else has played it either. If you dive into it when a new pair drops, we might not know, we don't know right now who's going to be the best squirrel player or the best werewolves player when those come out.
Exactly.
But that could be anybody listening.
The other thing about new factions and like tournaments, I know Profit used to do this a lot. You can take a new faction in a tournament. You can often catch your opponent off guard just by the fact that like if you played a fair amount with that new faction, they might not really know what's going on with it yet. They might not have played it. They might not have played against it a whole lot. And so I know that's something that some of the players in the past have really used to not only increase their fun sometimes to really switch it up and try a new faction in a tournament, but also just give you a little edge.
Yeah, I actually explained that in the Cheres stream. I was up against Orange Lazarus, and I was like, yeah, I'm not going to beat this person. This person is so good, has so much knowledge. But then I had 2 picks to pick Drakes and Rebellion 2 times. And it was the new faction, so I gambled on him not knowing the faction that well, and I finished him 2 times with an assassination out of the blue. And yeah, it worked that way. I'm not the best Drakeson player, but he probably didn't have as much experience against him.
One thing I'm noticing with the factions that you're picking is you really like to kill the opponent's summoner between Drake, OD, and Cloaks. And then I was like, well, Savannah Elves is kind of a little bit of an odd man out there. I'm like, oh wait, Chain of Power combos. Yeah, no, it's you like to do a lot of damage in real quick to an opponent's summoner.
A lot of my opponents also notice that I tend to play a lot more aggressive. I have these discard a lot. I go for pressure and also tempo. And yeah, I love assassinating. It's well seen, and I notice it now too. But
you should do Wayfarers next if you're floundering.
Actually, I'm playing Wayfarers again, and I was thinking about picking them next live season. Actually, so yeah, they're lovely.
Yeah, they sound very fun live.
Yeah, I like them for that. Even though I went 0-4 when I was in Div 1 the other day, but the other time.
Can't win them all.
No, and when also people expect it. So like you're saying, like people expect me to do a certain thing, and then like I think you run into Tundra Orcs or Guild Dwarves or some other tough matchups, and it happens. But let's go back to you, Exile. What are your 4 factions for those who don't know?
It's quite funny, but because it is exactly 4. It is only 4. I guess I'll go in ascending order. I think my least favorite of my 4, at the moment at least, is the Forged. I still love them as a faction. I think that there is a lot underexplored with them in particular, just because they're such a weird esoteric faction that you can do a lot of different things with, exploring things like defensive forged and different ways to use modular. One thing that I think I talked to you about in actually that live game that we played, Forged versus Cloaks, if I recall correctly, is using gates, like how they utilize gates is actually interesting, because I was just using them as a barricade that you can't play during your attack phase, basically, but you can still summon stuff off them even though you generally build it. So a lot unexplored there. I suppose it'd be at the bottom of my 4, just because their draw order can sometimes get really funky. The thing that I've been coming back to recently, I guess I've been spoiled a little bit with the other factions that I've been playing. After that, at the moment, it would be Filth. Quite a strong faction. I really like how consistent they are. You would think that a faction with a bunch of singletons wouldn't be that consistent, because you have 8 cultists that are minorly different, but effectively all kind of serve a similar role, and then another 4 cultists that are similar, and you have the ability to search your deck. You can tailor their playstyle to the opponent so well. If your opponent is playing a deck like Storm Goblins that really is great at killing a lot of little things, but not good at killing a single big thing, individual mutants and Abomination are really strong tools. If your opponent is playing something that can focus fire and roll a bunch of dice on one thing, Swamp Orcs, even though it's not a great matchup, or Wayfarers, then you can kind of embody a more go wide approach, overexpose with a bunch of mutants and cultists. So I just really like how well they can tailor their strategy to the given matchup. After that, it would be Mountain Vargruth, actually. Just a really solid faction, quite similar to Tundra Orcs, and just you have good attack values. You've got great HP. Although you're primarily melee, you have just a suite of events that lets you do so many movement tricks. It lets you both play a like very straightforward economic play style of just making good trades, and then also having this threat of combining a bunch of different tricks to do crazy things out of nowhere. A very like unexpectedly explosive faction is I guess how I would think about it. But one that doesn't need that explosiveness. Like I feel like OD a little bit, and like similar factions kind of need that ability to explode, and if they aren't able to explode, they can struggle. While the ghosts more have it as a tool, which is a thing I appreciate. And surprising even myself, I think my favorite faction at the moment would be Shimmer Sea Fae. They are incredibly underrated, I would say. And they definitely have some, some inherent issues and some really tough matchups that can be a bit disheartening. They kind of embody like my favorite like my favorite types of factions or characters in games, in that they are definitely weaker, but they have the ability to surprise their opponent, both because they aren't well versed in the matchup and also just because that's kind of what the deck does. Oracles mean that you can put together combinations of cards that your opponent did not expect, also on magic values that your opponent can't know about. I've won games off of having 2 magic, but I played 2 oracles to have 4 magic suddenly, and that let me do a thing that I wasn't able to do before, or my opponent couldn't expect unless they were expecting oracles, essentially. A very tactical faction, one that can really explode, has some crazy reach if you set it up, and one that I think is just really underrated.
Can I ask you something?
Of course.
You like to delve into these factions, really going deep into them. Have you played all the other factions?
Played us like probably anywhere between like 0 and 5 games of each of the other factions. I don't think I've actually played all of them. I probably played
Some for the tournament.
1 for most. Yeah. The tournament had me play at least most of the other ones and like a quarter of the symbols. But there's probably been a few that I actually have not played yet.
You're in the Massimo's SW Zone League too, so you've played some in there as well, right?
Yes, that one as well.
But again, like 2 games each or 1 game each, just because you have to.
Yeah, if you look at like the graph of like the factions I play, it's like probably outside of those 4, it's like 5 or on like the next highest, and then it goes to like 100 on like the field or something.
Yeah, that's kind of the way I approach board games. There's a few that I like to play a lot, and then a bunch that I've maybe just tried.
Man, your Division 2 is looking spicy for this SW Zone League season. You got Bookish, Snicket, Slimy, Nosy, Exile, and OL. Orange Lazarus? Man, that is... I'm excited to see how that plays out.
Oh boy, it's gonna be fun. I like that league as well because playing both sides of the matchup and also just playing decks that I haven't really played that much before is, as we've talked about already, a good way to learn. Because I have no idea. I would have never played the Guild Dwarves and Polar Dwarves matchup because I don't play either of those factions. So now we're learning that matchup far off from the course that I've gone down.
That's kind of how I'm at with like Fallen Kingdom and Chosen Grove now. I'm like, I don't play either of these very often.
What do you mean? Fallen Kingdom are your favorite faction?
Oh yeah, definitely.
You and Tortugatron, the biggest people for Fallen Kingdom.
You have a Fallen Kingdom tattoo, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
That's on my face.
Yep. Oh,
it's just under my beard. You can't see it.
Oh, okay, good. What do you guys think of, I don't know if you guys experienced this at all, but I know a lot of times in the community when new players such as yourselves, who are very good right away, come up, some of the old players who have been there forever and put tons of hours in get a little, I don't know if salty is the right word, but they get a little like skeptical. They're like, where these new players come from? Like, how is this somebody who like made a new account and is like smurfing or something? Or like, what's going on here? And something I like to throw out a lot is I feel like with games like Summoner Wars has such a small community, the very best Summoner Wars players probably have not even played the game yet. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
That sounds like a compliment, right? If someone thinks you're smurfing, I can only take that as a compliment. And yeah, if they feel like that's the case, hit me up on Discord and come have a 1-to-1.
Open challenge.
Yeah.
1v1 me, bro.
I don't think I've encountered that for at least myself at all. I think that like being active on the Discord probably helps that a bit.
Yeah.
If somebody can see that you're a person who talks on the Discord at least every once in a while, I feel like the chance that you're taking smurfing to that level is quite low. That you have like an alternate, essentially like cosplaying as a new player on the Discord. That'd be really weird.
I think it's just too much energy for that. And someone thought similarly about Oxcorb, and Oxcorb was another player that came up with Mountain Vargath, similar to you. So
Yeah.
they haven't been playing as much lately, but it's just kind of funny.
Yeah,
Yeah.
normally when you're on the Discord, they don't make those crazy accusations, but it's more happens if it's like a player that's like rising up the rankings and is not on the Discord or like has a weird name or something. Or
And that also makes sense, right? If you're that invested into the game and you're also not on the Discord, that's a little bit weird. But you do you?
There's not too many of those. In general, the community is very welcoming and helpful. But I was asking about like what factions I should play. Like I got a lot of responses from a lot of different people, including like DMs of being like, "Hey, if you want like some help with this or whatever, like just let me know. I test some stuff out." People were like in general like very accommodating, and it wasn't very hostile. With that being said, there is unfortunately, I think, demonstrable evidence of people who do Smurf, which I mean is kind of, I guess, an inevitable thing in the sense that there's always going to be some people who do that kind of thing, which isn't cool. But I think there hasn't been much like witch hunting, which I appreciate. It's been the thing that people have like, hey, is this a thing? And people have been like, yeah, maybe. And if there's been like we've had a couple cases, I think, of like people very, very clearly, kind of gaming the system with new accounts and things like that, which is unfortunate. But outside of like those ones, I think it's been something that's at least pretty few and far between, but maybe leaves big impression whenever it happens.
How do you guys think about making another account to test out factions? Because if you look at my account, I've played them all on my main account, and it's a mess. And I think I would have been a little bit higher on my on the ladder if I did that. Do you think that's cheating or?
I don't know. That kind of stuff doesn't bother me. I mean, if you want to make a new account, eventually you're going to get to high ranks and have to deal with it's just like the purposeful forfeits and stuff like that is probably a little more annoying. But again, I haven't run into that much myself.
yeah, there's been people in the community who have made like different accounts for different things, and I don't really have a problem with like almost any of it. And we have never really had any problems in any of the tournaments either until this tournament we had. I think Joe banned one person or something. But like, there's been people in the past who have made a couple different accounts just to only play like one faction on each account. They just want to play one faction on this account, one faction on this account. Or like there's been people I know in the past who like only play the free factions, and so they kept getting a new account until they got the free faction that they wanted.
Yeah.
And then after they got the free faction that they wanted, they stopped making new accounts because they were like, "Oh, I think they wanted Savannah Elves, and they kept re-rolling and re-rolling and re-rolling until they got Savannah Elves." I don't feel like there's anything against making another account, but
It doesn't go to the quality of the game of like people leaving matches and stuff or not playing. And if you just play the match like usual, then yeah, it actually doesn't matter.
Yeah, just to, I guess, make one final point on that. I think that like it really depends like on your intent to a certain degree and how you're going about it. If you made a new faction every single time you hit diamond, let's say, or sorry, a new account every single time you hit diamond, I think that would be a little bit like, okay, you're intentionally making this account to play against lower rated players, right?
Yeah.
That's not cool because I mean it would be fine if it wasn't harming other people's enjoyment of the game. Because I know that there are like lower rated players who are like, I'm just getting stopped. I've seen a couple posts about that on the Discord, being like, hey, this kind of sucks. There's people who are just stopping me that look like that they are doing this. Which, if that is the case, that's rough. If you make a new account though, because you're like, I want to play Deepwood Groaks on this account, and I'm gonna give it a frog name, then you're only going to like you're gonna hit diamond pretty quick. And if you were doing that like constantly, again, that's where I think it gets the issue. But I mean, yeah, if you hit diamond and then that's your frog account, then cool, awesome, like that's fine.
Yeah, interesting.
So my question was back towards Exile. Earlier you mentioned that you would play like 10 games in preparation for each Faction Masters matchup just to get a feel for the ins and outs of the matchup. Who is your test dummy for that? And not that they're a dummy, but you know.
I will give a shout out to R. Debris. I signed up for the mentorship program when I very first joined for the Live League, and he was my mentor. And then we still kept playing some like practice games, and like I think technically the Live League season was still ongoing while I joined Faction Masters or something like that, or I forget exactly how it shook out, but he was super helpful in just playing 10 games of each faction, each matchup. That, and I will also shout out, I suppose, I play quite a lot of games with Majestic Onions, another player on the Discord. I think we have something like, at this point, like 500 games between just the two of us in private matches.
Jeez.
What? Wait, whoa.
That's a
Let me,
lot.
That's not your last 1,000. That's just overall, or
that is overall, yeah. I mean, here,
Okay.
let me get the
Wait,
number
how many
here.
games have you played then? Because
I've played about 900, and 200 and not 500, 300 of them have been with
Still a
with
lot.
Mystic
That's still a
Onions.
lot.
that's
I don't.
incredible.
Yeah, usually have like a game or two going at any given time. We recently started both doing playtesting as well, which has been fun.
Ah, yeah, playtesting. I was thinking about joining that as well. It seems really fun.
I would recommend it. It's a good time.
Okay, good to know.
We've talked a lot about Summoner Wars. For people who like Summoner Wars, want to take a break from it here and there, are there any board or video games you recommend to Summoner Wars players that either for more of the same or something different?
Yeah, definitely. I recently bought a small weird game. It's called Toy Battle. Very quick to play. It's pretty cheap for a board game. Look it up. It's quite fun. And also recently Slay the Spire 2 is
Video game? Yeah.
the video game. If you like card games but you want to play like a little bit solo, chill out a bit, Slay the Spire is really cool. And also, if you have some synchronized games on and you need to wait on your turn.
I was gonna shout out Slay the Spire 2 as well. I've been playing that recently. Far as other board and card games, I think Summoner Wars at the moment is my favorite board game. My next two runners up would be there's a card game called Smash Up. They call it a shuffle builder, where you essentially shuffle two pre-made decks into one deck, so you can combine two factions, which creates a lot of different pairings, which is very fun. So not really deck building in the sense that you're picking individual cards, but you're picking like two sets of cards to put together. It's also what's called a lane battler. You're playing cards in a lane on like a specific location, trying to get the most like power there. Really fun game. Tons of factions. I think there's over 100 at this point. And one thing that they've done recently that I haven't been caught up on, but seems really cool, is that with over 100 factions, they definitely have some balance issues of some factions that are very strong and some factions that are really bad. But they've done a giant like errata and like balance pass. And the way they've done it is that they've gone to print on demand. Because errata packs and things like that are very hard to sell, right, at a board game store, because the player base that you're tailoring that to is somebody who's already highly invested in this card game. They essentially partnered with some company to where whenever you order these errata changes, they print it on demand and then ship it to you. So it's a way that they've been able to do like some really good balance changes, which I appreciate, which is something I would love to also see in Summoner Wars, is some more use of errata. And my other favorite game at the moment is called Compile. It's another lane battler. It's really cool. It's themed after your like two rogue artificial intelligences who are duking it out, but it's got a really cool system of whenever you play cards to a lane, you cover up the old ones. And whenever you uncover them or like play them, you can then repeat the effect. So it's got all of this like really cool, like kind of procedural strategy to it of like, you can kind of have those like big combo turns like you do in Summoner Wars, where you go, oh, I'm going to play this to uncover that, which is going to let me do this and that and that. And you can do crazy chains of cards, which is always a good time.
Maybe another game that I now just recently thought of. I love playing strategy games, but my girlfriend doesn't. So we have this game called The Mind. I don't know if you guys have heard of it. It's a card game where you try to count to 100, and it gets without saying a word, and it gets increasingly more difficult. It's so much fun. I've played with friends, with family, with my girlfriend, and it's definitely recommended to play.
Nice.
Cool. So if people want to talk to you guys more about Summoner Wars, what's the best place to find you? Just in the Summoner Wars Discord or anywhere else?
Yep. Yeah, really short answer, but no, just message me on Discord. I'm very open to everyone to talk to. If you want to chat with me about a certain matchup or certain factions, I'm always down to talk. I love talking about this game. Feel free to send me a message.
Same goes for me. As Jexic said, I will talk about Summoner Wars for hours on end. If you so wish, you'll find me in the Discord server, as well as the playtesting servers, and most frequently in the Shimmers Ife Discord channel.
Writing essays.
Mini essays. Yeah. Just a short little 8-paragraph essay on one mechanic. Don't worry about it. But yeah, if you ever want to chat, just hit me up.
Sounds good. Well, we appreciate you guys coming on the podcast and hanging out with us, talking about the community and your experiences.
Yeah, thanks for having us on.
Yeah, thank you. It was a nice surprise to come on here.
This has been another episode of Discard for Magic, and we'll see you guys in a couple weeks.